I mean, I didn't even party in high school. I went out 16 years old, and I would like break into the gym basically and stay there all weekend and just train.
The most impressive thing outside of, the squats that I've seen you do is you didn't train. You're just like, no, fuck it. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing this. And to do that in the environments that you trained in, right, is commendable. But forget that. To do it in this environment, when you're used to like, there's got to be a better way. And for us, then better means faster.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way I can keep doing this, but not have to regress. You had to regress for a year, and then I think at the time that I saw it was when was it a WPO? It was when the thing with the Arnold thing was in the fairgrounds.
XBC.
Yeah.
Yep.
We probably didn't even like each other much at that time, but I'm watching you. It was your first comeback, right? And the squad's like, well, fuck, this dude, this is for real. This is kind of happening.
Yeah.
Then the bench is like, well, fuck, this is kind of happening. Then the back is a little tricky. I'm like, God damn it, it was almost there.
Yep.
Then I'm starting to like watch your live stream meets, right? And I come in like, fucking Brian almost had it. I'm like, what do you mean fucking Brian? I'm like, I'm telling you, he almost had it. It was this one meet, and you're chasing, what was it?
2,700.
2,700. I was like, man, it's so
right there at the Kern.
Close, man. Yeah. And so it was fun watching as an outsider, but more so because I knew what you had to endure, not from the training wise, but from the not training wise, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's hard. It's like we joked about it earlier, but a lot of us, and I mean, you've talked about it at length for the last 20 years, but a lot of us, it's an out mentally, like to train and just blow it out, right? It's an out to like forget about the shit going on at home, the stuff going on at work, the whole nine. You take that away and it's hard. So I've been able to have a unique perspective going through that, being that it's been my life since, I mean, I didn't even party in high school. I went out 16 years old, and I would like break into the gym basically and stay there all weekend and just train. And when I got bored, I didn't have cable at home, so I'd watch cable and walk on the treadmill. Then I'd go train some more. So it's been my life for a lot longer than just the 22 years I've been competing. And so I can relate to people that tell me I got to train, or the mental thing, or I hate my husband, I hate my wife, I got to go to CrossFit training today. And so I can relate, but then I have to say, well, play the movie forward 2 years from now. What was going on, first of all, what was going on 2 years ago? Well, it wasn't that bad. It's progressively gotten worse. So what are you going to do when you're laid up in home and you can't get out of the house from this person you say you don't like? You can get up around now, but you're abusing your body in a way that you're not ready for. So play the movie forward a year or two from now. What's going to happen? You're going to be really messed up, and you're going to be dependent on this person you say you don't even like. So take care of this now while you still have some control over it. Back off, put the ego aside, talk to a counselor if you need to. I don't give them medical advice as far as like what to do or what not to do as far as their emotions, but I do tell them they're going to have to back off of training.
But how do you, this is interesting to me, right? Because we had those conversations,
right?
Where I was saying that to you, right? And I wasn't able to get that connection, right? So how are you getting that connection with the people that you're talking to? Or do you think it's because you're just recently retired? Because I was out of the game for a while, right? So when we were having the conversations about you retiring or not, I'm trying to play the game of, look, you have this wife. I don't want you to end up in a divorce because you're putting too much time into this sport because of the mentality that it takes. And, at some point in time, you're going to want to have kids. And it's like, no, I don't ever want, but it's hard, man. It's hard to get in there. And it's really hard to get in there with people like you. That's not a derogatory statement. We've had this conversation before. There's like a meathead mentality, right? That I don't know if we can ever get into that, to be honest. I really don't know. You can just put it out there and they'll realize later, but how are you having success doing that?
Getting through to people
like
that,
and
getting them to understand that they got to stop lifting for a while.
Yes. The hard ones. I mean, the easy ones, they're going to get it, right? But there's the hard ones.
So there's a guy that's an old school multiply guy. You'd know his name, and I've been working with him for about 3 or 4 months or so now. Great dude, and super just bull strong. Well, you hurt his back a few years ago, and he's about 48 years old now, and he's wanting to do a comeback, and he's strong as a bull, but his back had him down, like he was down and out last year. And he reached out to me, and I said, okay, let's talk. Here's some books to read. And he just went ghost. I knew he didn't get the books, and I'm like, okay, fine. And so he reached back out to me 3 months later, earlier this year, after he got really messed up in November. He goes, hey man, I messed up. I didn't get the books. I didn't reach back out to you. I'm willing to do that now. And so I've had him pain free for about a month now, and he's considering back to lifting and everything. And one thing I did say to him, I said that it was not wise, but I understand why you blew it off. But a lot of the time, I can give them enough rope for them to hang themselves. I'll say, well, here's what I think, but try it and see how it goes. You can always hit me back up. And I've had people where I tell them, if you continue to train, it's going to get worse. And then when I'm right, they usually come back and say, okay, I got to stop. Because countless times I'll look them in the eye and I can kind of tell they're hesitant when I say, well, you can't lift this weekend. I can't bench. And I said, no, you're extension intolerant. You don't do well with compression. You got to stop lifting for a while. But what if I do this? I said, well, I'm not going to negotiate with you on it. Do you want to get pain free or not? And so the way I can summarize this the best is it's a psychological game. Everyone's going to be different to reach. Mm-hmm. Some people, you got to meet them eye to eye. Other people, you got to be a little bit more of a good cop, bad cop. I had two polar opposites come and see me a couple weeks ago. I had a 21-year-old kid, and I had a 48-year-old man that was a very wealthy and a very successful guy. And I had to treat both of them different, and I had to kind of play up a little bit like, hey, your mom is doing you a solid by getting you down here and helping. You need to listen because remember where you were a year ago and remember how bad things have gotten the last 6 months. You have a chance now to nip it in the bud, and if you don't, things are going to get worse, and your mom might not bail you out next time. So it really just depends, man. A lot of the time I end up playing like mentor to them more than anything because they don't want to hear it. And the old me would have just kept bombarding them like I used to do to people when they just didn't. I couldn't get them to see it. I'd be like, and I'd like to go round and round with them. Now I just, I guess I've changed some of my thinking and my approach now. It's like, here it is. If you don't like it, it's not a big deal at all, But
I do think that it still might be like a little bit of a sales game to where maybe they need to hear the message 10 times before they're going to really get it. But the 10 times can't be from you.
Right.
Like I'll just pivot here for a minute. Think of the number of people over the years that you've looked at them, say they want a powerlifter and they want to bodybuild, and it's very clear they need to gain weight. It's very clear. They're like 6'4", 110 pounds. It's very freaking clear, right? Or you can tell just based upon their structure, if they're a powerlifter, they really need to be a couple weight classes heavier to have the leverages to lift. Yep. And that gets rejected so many times.
It does.
And then almost in every case, if it's a serious powerlifter, 3 or 4 years later, you'll see a post or you'll hear them say something like, I don't know why nobody told me that I needed to gain weight because they're so much stronger now. And you're just like, I think this might kind of be the same, would you think, with the back stuff? Now, granted, when you're talking pain, there's a large scale. So some people may be coming and saying, now everybody's scale is different too, that they want to be pain-free. But what's that really mean to them? Like how much discomfort are they really in? Because obviously for you to travel to Canada and to agree to Stu's surgery without a knife protocol, you were either in very, very bad pain or you were willing to do anything possible to come back and get the squat record that you wanted. It was one of those. It's probably a combination of both, right?
It was just being broke. Like, I can't describe how painful it was for me. So I haven't talked about this a great deal. I've talked about the day-to-day stuff that hurt. I've talked about the lifting stuff that hurt. But in 2012, my back just got really jacked up during the meet. Something happened warming up on the squat. The platform slid, and I really tweaked it. And I had to scrape and claw through that meet. Like I'm talking, I won somehow. And then the same thing happened again in 2013, and I couldn't pull the last deadlift to beat Yarnbosch. And it's two of the hardest things I've ever had to do is make myself pull 3 attempts because I couldn't even get down to the bar. I was in such pain. So even though I just squatted 1147 2 months before I saw Stu, I knew that, dude, this stuff was getting bad. So when I went there, I had to go there with a completely beginner attitude. Like I just had to break, and I told Rhea, I said, I'm going to give this 100% shot. I canceled my appointments with the follow-ups with the surgeons, the dye injection, myelogram, and all that stuff, and I just pursued it with 100% focus. And at the very least, I said, I'm going to give this a try, and I got nothing to lose at this point.
No, I forgot to mention, I don't know if we discussed this last time, you were in queue for the surgery.
Yeah.
So at that point, there is really nothing else. There's nothing to lose. You go up there, it doesn't work, you're still back to where you were actually planning.
And that was in the back of my mind. At least I know a good rehab protocol to come back if I do. And then immediately when Stu examined me during the assessment and looked at my images, he immediately said, you're not a surgery candidate because you have multiple pain mechanisms. So the likelihood of them going in and fixing the one thing that's your biggest pain generator is low, but they're not going to take away all your pain. So you still have dysfunction, and you have things that you got to fix. You got causes. You got causes that you got to address. You got to stabilize the core. So that's the dirty little secret about surgery. And people are like, I just want to get the surgery. I'm tired of dealing with this rehab. You still got to rehab afterward, bro.
Yes.
And I think people forget that with surgery, there's always potential for complication. And anytime someone's going to open you up with a knife, there's always, well, not always, but there's definitely a lot of times when that rehab takes longer because they're cutting tissue, they're cutting, like it's trauma. It's trauma to the body that they're adding.
You got to recover too from the anesthesia.
Right.
So every surgery I've had, that's like 3 weeks just to get normal strength-wise from the anesthesia. So it's just how different people react. But you're still, regardless of the joint surgery, back surgery, you're still, I don't want to say immobile, but
down.
You're down for at least 2 to 4 weeks, easy.
Yep.
And that's really before you can start what I would consider real rehab. Granted, you got walking, you have that stuff, and if it's a hip, you got the little leg raises, but the stuff that I would call, probably your definition is different than mine now. Rehab is not laying on the bed pulling my leg with a band side to side. It is, but it's not. So when people look at the concept of the surgery without a knife, I don't think they're really looking at it correctly.
Yep.
Because that's 8 weeks easy.
Yep.
Because the surgery alone, they forget that, and you don't train the week before the surgery unless you're an idiot like me. But you really don't, right?
Cut footage.
Well, you're depressed, and you know what I'm saying. You're in so much pain, you just want to get the damn thing over with. And how good was your training for the last couple weeks leading up to the surgery?
Garbage.
Not that good. So if you really look at the time frame, it's probably 3 months.
Yep.
Anyhow, so what the hell, So I see it now better than when I was making fun of you for doing the what was
Seal
it?
Pilates.
The seal Pilates. Yeah, that was the one.
And
And what was weird, you talked about, you laughed in my face in a good way. It wasn't like.
That was all in fun.
It was
but still,
but so when we were eating lunch about 3 years ago when we reconnected, and you busted out laughing with food in your mouth, basically saying that, dude, I don't know how you fucking did it. I don't know how you backed off, dude, because your ego is so big, and you just abruptly just laughed right in my face.
It is. That's what impresses me so much more about it.
And you're right, because I had no other choice but to do it. And you know what's weird about that is, it didn't bother me not training, because I used that same bullheaded pit bull mentality that I used to come up with the big squat last year in my rehab. I just said, this is what my training is right now. I don't care about this other stuff. There'll be a time when this and this and this is back in my repertoire, in my toolbox, but right now I'm going to build a core of iron, and I'm going to get back, and I want to get my squat back because David just broke it with 1210 at 275, and I just wanted to get it back. And I did have, honestly, what helped keep me accountable to doing the program was a lot of self-doubt that I'm done. I'm done. I'm never going to be back. I'll probably be able to move well. I'll be able to squat 315 or something, but I'm probably not going to ever. I really did think, even up until a couple years ago, I really didn't think I'd ever break 1200 because I was keeping my body weight down and knew that was going to hurt my strength, but I couldn't get bigger because my body didn't like being above 270, so I was stuck in no man's land. But so I really was like, man, I would have liked to have squatted 1200, but it just didn't happen.